Welcome, everyone. I want to call to order the February 18th, 2020 Board of Aldermen regular meeting. If everyone would please join with me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Alderman Plucker.
Here.
Alderman Sims is absent. Alderman Weggie.
Here.
Alderman Leahy.
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Here.
Alderwoman Everly. O'Neill.
We're not used to this. It's not alphabetical.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Shelley. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes or modifications to the agenda? Alderman Waggy.
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion to add to new business discussion on Landmark Way.
Okay. Mr. City Attorney, any problem with doing that?
No, sir.
Okay. We have a motion by Alderman Waggy to add under item 11, the 11B, discussion on, I'm sorry, what was it again?
Discussion on Landmark Way at Manchester.
Discussion on Van Mark Way at Manchester. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Do we have any objection to adopting the agenda as amended? Seeing none, it will be so adopted. Next on the agenda is item 4, announcements, appointments, proclamations, recognitions. 4A, we have a couple of swearing-ins tonight for 2 of our new police officers. You get a big group to see this. Congratulations. First is Officer London Brown. Chief, you want to handle that, or?
What do you want to do first?
Put him in the middle.
I'm just going to stand around.
Yeah, stand in the middle. Do it in the middle. Good
All
camera.
right. Raise your right hand. I, London Brown, solemnly swear
Solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States and the state of Missouri,
of the United States and the state of Missouri,
the provisions of all laws of the state of Missouri,
the provisions of all laws of the state of Missouri
affecting the city of Brentwood,
affecting the city of Brentwood,
and the ordinances of the city of Brentwood,
and the ordinance of the city of Brentwood,
and that I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
and diligently demean myself
and diligently demean myself
at all times
while
serving as patrol officer
serving as patrol officer
of the city of Brentwood.
of the city of Brentwood.
We're going to ask that London's son come up and pin his badge on his face.
Oh, nice.
Don't miss.
Got EMS standing by. Yeah, EMS standing by.
He's just been sworn in.
Good job.
I just want to say a couple words about London. London comes to us with over 26 years of prior law enforcement experience. So for those citizens here in the group tonight, you're getting a really, really experienced officer. And a lot of times you think of an experienced officer, maybe you think of somebody who's gruff and crabby and smokes too much. London doesn't smoke at all. He could not be any more friendly than he is. He is one of the most amazing personalities I've ever had the opportunity to meet, and he's a joy to be around, and he's going to do nothing but benefit our community and our police department. So welcome, London. Thank you.
Thank you, Major. Next on the agenda is swearing in of the police, by the Police Department of Officer Thurn Johnson.
Your hand. I, Theron Johnson,
I, Theron Johnson,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Missouri,
and the state of Missouri,
the provisions of all laws
the provisions of all laws
of the state of Missouri
of the state of Missouri
affecting the city of Brentwood
affecting the city of Brentwood
and the ordinances of the city of Brentwood,
and the ordinances of the city of Brentwood,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and diligently demean myself
and diligently demean myself
at all times
at all times
while serving as police officer
while serving as police officer
of the city of Brentwood.
of the city of Brentwood.
Stay safe.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations. Welcome.
And tonight, Chief of Police is gonna pin, Theron's badge on for him.
I'm Theron.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Just because Theron has just about as much life experience as London has police experience. Don't let that alarm you. Theron also comes to us with a couple of years of former police experience. He's a wonderful, wonderful young man. He's kind, caring, compassionate. He has the disposition of a wonderful human being. He has a knack for kids and is gonna be very well here with our community. So, we're super happy to have him as well.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have no public hearing, and now item 6, citizen comments. That is the time in the meeting where members of the public who care to address the board or staff, now is the time to do so. And just for those of you who've not done this before or haven't attended any meetings, I just want to lay out how we try to run the citizen comments. We allow up to 3 minutes per speaker. And the reason for that is quite simply, we have business to conduct. We got to get through this agenda, and we have a lot of employees who've been here all day, and they want to get home. So we ask that you try to abide by that 3-minute rule. And with that, I open the comments up. And if you do want to come, just stand up at the podium and give your name and your address, please. Okay, Mike?
If nobody else is going to start this off. Mike Horton, sorry, to the board. Mike Horton, I live on 2527 Camlin. First thing I'd like to say is thank you to Alderman Weggie for bringing up the Van Markway, right down here. I'm pretty sure you're going to hear a lot from people tonight because I'm pretty sure that's why a lot of people are here from the 3rd Ward. It's kind of came out of the blue for a lot of us. I know that there have been lots of meetings on what's going on in Manchester and what's going on with Gateway. I can't think. Brentwood bound, but I'm thinking of the folks who are looking at the tunnel. I should know that. But anyway, there've been lots of meetings, and I can tell you right now that I looked at those plans. I was very interested. I was very interested in the tunnel, and nowhere at all did I see, understand, know that this little thing that they're planning on doing was part of this plan. I think there's a lot of people here will have their own comments. I don't like it, and one thing we should be doing is having another specific meeting to talk about the changes at some point. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else?
Thank you again for your guys' service. My name is Brian Hanson. I live at 8617 Joseph Avenue. I became more aware of this situation because some citizens dropped off this pamphlet at my doorstep. And like Mike had spoke, it was never really clear on the plans and drawings of this tunnel location and how that was going to affect intersections and that, and was really surprised to just see. I did see a brief note about this in an update, a Brentwood Bound update, saying that the Parkway wasn't going to be allowed to intersect and have this access out onto it. Again, I never really realized that was a detail if that was ever shown on the drawings from the start, but having this intersection be completely changed into accessing directly through our neighborhood, I would venture to guess that less than 5 or 10% of those cars make a U-turn and come back through the Joseph Brentwood South area through there. So where now all that traffic is going to have the opportunity, or much less just take that easier traffic to get to Manchester or get to Hanley, versus their typical way out where they have been going is out towards Manchester. So I'm not saying that stuff couldn't be taking place to help control traffic and whatnot, but I'm just surprised that the direction that it went, and there was no really good public comments or the ability to just let everybody know and chime in on this particular option. I don't know what other options there really were at this point, but I just feel like that we were all kind of blindsided with where the current status is. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us the time to speak today. Katie Machin, I live on Dorothy Avenue. I attended the meeting on Thursday, and I think there's a lot of information that maybe will be discussed today, but I really, for me and some of my neighbors, really want to emphasize that this is about safety for us, the change to the intersection Van Mark Parkway. It's really about safety. It's safety for the cars, it's safety for the residents, it's safety for the pedestrians, and there's a lot of people to consider. And just the information that we've been told at this point, I feel like our safety concerns aren't being addressed, and it's not about people who live in the apartment complex for us or who live not in the streets or other areas. It's about all the residents and anyone that's using our streets or our trail system. So anyway, we just really want to focus on the safety of it, and it's not about the tunnel for us, it's not about Brentwood Bound for us. I think we all supported that, so thank you.
Thank you. Oh, we have two.
Jan Brent, I'm in Ward 3, and I too was rather blindsided by this whole plan, but all I have is one thing to say, and I've lived in the area for 28 years, and I've always had dogs, and we have children, babies, children going to school, walking through this neighborhood. We have no sidewalks. And through the years, I've noticed an increase in traffic because people cut through that area to avoid the Manchester and Brentwood light. So already we've got more traffic than we did in the past just from people cutting through. Trying to walk with children, with dogs, you're walking in the street, you're always moving over. Now, if we're talking about adding 100+ more cars through that area, now obviously not all of them are going to be going down the streets that we walk on, but there will be enough. And if there's the alternatives, there are alternatives. Cutting through that entrance to the apartments, cutting straight through to Dorothy would be a wonderful alternative. Anything, I strongly urge you, to do anything you can to keep more cars from coming through that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Marion Bradford, and I live at 8734 Florence. I've lived there for over 40 years. I've lived in Brentwood for 50 years. I used to live on Van Mark Way, and I just moved around the corner. So I know what the apartments are like. And here again, I'm not worried about a quality of people going through my streets or anything. I'm worried about the quantity of cars that are going to go down. Florence is very narrow. Right now, you can park on both sides, and you can barely get down at different times. There are people that live at Kentland and Florence, and they park their cars right at the corner. And I can't imagine how much worse it's going to be when we have more cars. So I don't know, is there an alternative? I'm not really sure. Should we make parking on just one side? But I don't think any of these small streets are ready to take more traffic.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Tina Lombardo. I live on Helen Avenue. I've lived in Brentwood since 1991. I love our city. Brentwood, the neighborhood that we're talking about, it's called Mark Twain South because all of these streets emanate out from Mark Twain Elementary School. So that tells you right then and there. We're talking about a lot of children throughout the day, especially in the morning, in the afternoon. What I really would like to learn tonight is what were the merits that were believed to be initially in the closing off of the Van Mark access to Manchester in the first place. There had to have been a logic and a reason behind it, and maybe if I knew what that was, it would be easier to accept that this is happening and to start exploring what kind of traffic options can be put in place to mitigate the hazards that everybody is presenting that will have to do with streets that are already narrow, without sidewalks, have parking on both sides of the street. For the most part, you have to really be a courteous driver in our neighborhood, because if someone is coming from the other direction, you know you're going to wait and let them come through before you try to plow through yourself. So I look forward to more information. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Rochcott. Thank you for your time this evening. I live on 2605 Mary, so I am literally like 6 doors down from the planned or proposed intersection. Can you hear me? I don't have a, can you hear me any better? No. I can certainly yell louder. I am a former teacher. I have no problem projecting. No, so I live at 2605 Mary, so I am familiar with this intersection that they're proposed to open up. I can't tell you that just on either side of our house there are 3 kids, 2 kids, 1 kid, 4 kids, and they're constantly in and out of that street to the park and back and forth. And that main parkway in the green space is constantly being used. And I just am very fearful because as it is right now, there is plenty of traffic, and I know that people have mentioned that there have plenty of cars out there. They are narrow streets. I don't know how this is going to work out. If you open up that space, they're going to come straight down Mary or perhaps turn to get to a different entrance. But I also am concerned about the entrance exiting the neighborhood to get onto Brentwood Boulevard or to get onto Hanley. There are no lights at the one right at Litzinger. It's horrible to try and get in and out of there during traffic times, which is another thing. But aside from all of that, you do have to think about, the safety of the cars, the safety of the kids. there are not only Mark Twain residents, but there are kids who are headed to that Mary Magdalene school as well. And they're on bikes, they're walking, and a lot of times they're not necessarily accompanied by adults. So I do wish that we had heard some reasoning, much less some notification that this was happening. But I don't understand why there's not another alternative. I did like the other lady's suggestion of maybe cutting something directly out to Dorothy, because I don't think this blind U-turn that has been proposed is at all enforceable. And I personally know that if I had a shortcut and nobody was around looking at me, I'd be tempted to take it. I just don't think it's a feasible solution as it currently stands. So thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Gould. I live at 2517 Mary Avenue. I'm not going to repeat everything that everybody's already said, but I think what the board is hearing, and the mayor and everybody that's been involved in this project, is that this is multiple problems that are compounded. This is not just about the one situation. We have enforcement issues going on with people that drive through our streets right now, and I think that the tinderbox that's been created because of that situation has created the people here today. What as I understand it from talking to as many people that have been involved, is the federal funding that was used to purchase the parkway was an issue. Is that not an issue?
We don't do question and answer, Jeff.
Okay, so that's fine. So I would ask that we, obviously what we're looking for is as many solutions to the problem as possible. And I think once the citizens of this that are affected mostly by this area, myself included, once we have a chance to explore that, we'll be comfortable with the decision that you all will have to make. So I appreciate it. I do have something that I can provide as far as an illustration of what some others were talking about. If you're happy.
Yeah.
So.
If you would, just go ahead and pass it. That'd be great, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Hi, I'm Amy Tilley. I'm at 2605 Mary Avenue, so you've just heard from several of my neighbors. I do have 3 children that are back and forth across that parkway with friends. The apartment complex uses that playground constantly, so a big concern for me. I don't understand why it's not okay to cut through the Rogers Parkway, but it's okay to take out an entire playground. That's a highly, highly used playground. Thank you. As well as the traffic issues. There's people that fly, they find out that you can get from Brentwood Boulevard to Manchester through Mary, and they come down Litzinger and they absolutely fly down that. If we open up to other people, the apartments, they're just going to come north the same way. So I know many other people have spoken. I'm right there on that Mary Ave strip as well, and I'm just really concerned for all of the people that are pedestrians in our area. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know where it's crossing. The original plan? Yeah, I don't know.
Hi, my name's Maggie Lang. I'm on Florence Avenue, 8741 Florence Avenue.
First name.
Maggie.
Hi, Maggie.
Unlike some of my neighbors, I'm going on my 3rd year living in Brentwood, and we moved out of the city. And when we first were looking in Brentwood, we would drive through the neighborhoods, and they were perfect. They're quiet, they're clean, they're safe, and that's specifically why we moved to our neighborhood. And this would be so sad. And just to reiterate what everyone said, we're in the streets all the time. My kids play street hockey all the time. My neighbors, this is how we see our neighborhood. This is how we see our community. Everybody's always walking in the streets. And just, everything that everybody else has said, I just have to reiterate. So.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Wharton. I live at 2527 Kentland. You heard from my husband before, and I'm not going to rehash everything else that everyone else just said because I agree with that also. But not only due to traffic concerns and people in the streets and all of that. I think the main problem, besides all of that and everything that can be happening like a domino effect from this, is also, why are we putting in a tunnel? Because this defeats the whole entire purpose.
Because what?
This defeats the whole entire purpose of putting the tunnel in the first place, for pedestrians to go safely across traffic. This defeats the whole entire purpose for putting the tunnel in on the pathway to begin with. Is because of safety. The tunnel is being put in so people can safely go across on the parkway through the park underneath Manchester, so they don't have to deal with traffic. Now they have to deal with even more traffic going through our neighborhood across the same pathway. So I just want to point that out, besides what everyone else said.
Anyone else?
I will try to go fast. My name is Kirk Mills. I'm the owner of Brentwood Place Apartments, and I'm a president of Mills Properties. I own 9,000 apartments. I've been doing this for 25 years. I know apartments inside and out. I love Brentwood. I think it's a great place. I know everybody in this room is here for the right reasons. I'm never going to sell Brentwood Place because I love the location. I love Brentwood. I think there's one piece of this puzzle that is that's a problem, and that's what most of the people here are talking about. The Van Markway was closed as soon as those apartments were built. There was an estate there. As soon as those apartments were built, that road was shut off. So Mary used to go all the way to Manchester. As soon as those apartments were built, cut off. So it was stopped. I got 100 cars in my apartment property, and it's a couple reasons why that 100 cars is a problem. It's 1/8 the size of the Kensington, Kentland, Litzinger neighborhood. There's 100 homes there. And my 100 cars, that neighborhood has about 160 homes. My apartment property is about 1/8 the size of that neighborhood, yet it has 100 cars versus something 8 times the size, which has only 160 cars. I love apartment people. I love my apartment residents. I think they're fantastic. Some of them are better drivers than anybody in this room. They also tend to, on average, skew younger. There's also something called social policing, which is if you go too fast in a neighborhood and your neighbor looks at you, oh gosh, I don't want to get that bad look again. I don't want the guy to come down my street and say, hey, you almost hit my son or whatever. That apartment property will have completely new residents on average every 2 years. Exactly. So you're there, you're done. If you upset somebody, there's less of a hurdle to pissing somebody off because you don't care as much. I love my apartment residents. This is this intersection. So this is the entrance into our apartment property. If the Keelings are parked here, and then Ryan and Whitney, I think, are parked here, and then Azim is parked here, it's like you get this one-lane thing. If somebody gets stuck here, you're going to be backing up in this intersection. It's going to be a nightmare. And then here is the blind right-hand turn. So you gotta so the tunnel. If people are the tunnel says go fast. This says go slow. And this is the biggest problem there is. So if you force people to do a U-turn, which I don't think is possible. If you force people to U-turn, you gotta hope that on average something doesn't happen.
Kirk, you have 15 seconds.
Oh yeah, left-hand turn. Okay. This is people coming home from work down Dorothy into the apartment property. Okay. This is the cut through to Brentwood. This is the cut through on Eulalie.
Okay, your time is up. Your time's up, Kirk.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I am Susan Mullen, and I live on Keystone there in Brentwood. I would just implore of whoever is working on this project, and I appreciate all the time and effort you all have put into it. I don't know if this tunnel is specifically involved with correcting the flood problems. If the tunnel is not specifically involved with correcting the flood issues on Manchester, then I I implore you to really think about what all of the majority of the neighborhood is feeling. And then the second part of it is, what is on the other side of the tunnel that is so worthy of our neighborhood being at risk and our children being at risk? Where is the tunnel, where is the path going to end up? What is going to be over there worthy of all of this issue going on? If it's possible to do away with the tunnel and still have our flooding problem corrected, I would highly, highly love you guys to consider that. If it has to do with changing it because of any reasons, let the community know so we're not concerned about it and we're not upset about it at least. And then there was one other thing, and I didn't write this down because I said I wasn't going to talk. But
You're doing fine.
The fact that this is such a major change. Anytime we have, I just got a letter 2 weeks ago, I think, that there's going to be a garage being built on Joseph and a deck being built on Joseph. I got a letter in the mail telling me of those changes. We have not gotten a letter from any of our elected officials stating this big change. And I'm just very concerned that it looks to us, I'm sure it's not, I hope it's not, I pray it's not, it looks to us that the powers to be, and it may be out of your hands, but we don't know these information. So I do agree with Mike over there, I think, that said we need some more discussion on this. Unless it is definitely out of our hands, please let us know so we're not wasting our time.
Anyone else? There will be another opportunity, I believe, on the agenda for citizen comments. Oh, no, I already And I think you did hear Alderman Weggie make a motion to add onto the agenda some discussion, general discussion on this. Now, now is the time where we have aldermanic response. If an alderman cares to respond to anything that was said, now's the time to do so. But I'm going to go first, and I have prepared just a few remarks that I want to read to you. And it's not to deal really with the merits of what I'm going to call the Brentwood Place apartments, but more with the process that was used by the city. Over the last 2 days, I have received numerous emails, telephone calls, and I've read a lot of social media posts suggesting that decisions were recently made and or kept from the public. Those suggestions simply are not true. First, as to the overall timeline, the decision to eliminate Van Mark Way, to install the tunnel, and moving the ingress-egress from Brentwood Place were not made recently. The elimination of Van Mark Way to make way for the pedestrian tunnel has been known for years. It was first discussed in 2016. The decision to move the ingress-egress was made in early 2019 or late 2018. Second, in terms of transparency, the process was intended to be completely open. My predecessor, Chris Thornton, who was the mayor when these decisions were made, ran on the platform of being transparent. When he was elected, he immediately changed the way that things were ran in order to effect that change. And things became much more transparent when he got into office. Chris's and the board's concern for transparency extended to the entire Brentwood Bound project. The particulars of Brentwood Bound have been communicated through ward meetings, Board of Aldermen meetings, numerous open houses, videos, newspapers, radio, TV, and pages of information on the city's webpage. That level of communication paid off when the voters overwhelmingly supported the economic development sales tax in April of 2019. The city tried to communicate the decision to eliminate Van Mark Way to make way for the tunnel and the decision to redirect the Brentwood Place apartments in a reasonable manner. For instance, the city and its engineers have been in contact with the owners of the Brentwood Place property about this project since early 2018. The Van Mark Way elimination and tunnel drawings were available in 2 open houses that were held in November of 2018 up at the school headquarters. At these well-attended open houses, Chris Thornton spoke, and our consultants were set up at different stations to answer questions from the residents. Likewise, the revised plans showing the Van Mark Way connecting north to Mary were made public at a March 2019 open house. The city has tried and continues to try to be transparent. Obviously, with the benefit of hindsight, someone can conclude we could have done more. However, please keep in mind that no one tried to hide anything from anyone. To the extent there wasn't enough outreach to the public, that was unintentional. At times, we as elected officials take for granted the information that we have. We assume everyone is on the same page as we are. We forget that the information is drilled in our heads at all the meetings that we attend, and that you do not get to attend. The city clearly believed with all it was doing through its open houses, webpage updates, board meetings, etc., that it was sufficiently getting the word out. Clearly, more is needed on our end. And with that, I open up to the board.
Okay, thanks. I would second everything that our mayor just got done saying, and I would additionally say that since the very beginning of Brentwood Bound, going back 4 years now, this tunnel has been a signature part of that project. And it is not flood mitigation, as somebody suggested it might have been. It is, in fact, to connect us to the Great Rivers Greenway. That is a huge thing, and was one of the things that I think got the public of Brentwood to get behind this project on a 2-to-1 margin when we had the sales tax vote in April of 2019. We are going to be able to connect our trail system, which currently dead ends at the north side of Manchester Road, through to the Great Rivers Greenway connector and connect us to that entire system without having to cross any dangerous streets. There are only 3 ways across Brentwood or across Manchester Road: over, at, and under. That's it. We can't go over. It's impossible with ADA compliance rules. There's not nearly the real estate to build a ramp that would accommodate wheelchairs and other devices that would have to be accommodated. At grade is an option that we debated on this board a number of different times, and I don't care how many hawk or high intensity lights you want to put at this potential crossing at grade. With 25,000 cars on Manchester Road a day, I'm a parent. I'm not putting my kid on a bike across that road at an at-grade crossing. There is no way. The only way across was through a tunnel. And this tunnel, the way it's been designed since its inception, has not changed. And the elimination of Van Mark and its connection to Manchester Road has always been a design feature, a publicly debated design feature of Brentwood Bound. To the extent that the people who talked tonight talked about their misgivings with regard to this notion of doing this U-turn, and it's been described in different ways, you make a lot of good points. And I will tell you that as I have listened to you and as I've listened and read on social media, I think the comments that you made are very well spoken. Reconnecting Mary and then hoping that people will make a U-turn around Florence and down Dorothy is perhaps a lot, and maybe it's too much to ask. Jeff, and I appreciate Jeff's comments tonight, and also Jan Brandt. I wanted to circle her as well. I appreciate her comments because both of them latched on to the original design feature of this connector, and that was a direct shot across to Dorothy Avenue that didn't involve going backwards onto Mary and around to Florence. It would encourage anybody coming in and out of these apartments to go to Manchester Road and not go north into the subdivision and flood the already small streets. I know about small streets. So all of those things, and I would just tell you from my own personal perspective, I am very interested in having a debate, and I am too glad that Alderman Wegge and Alderman Leahy put this on the agenda for conversation tonight. But if it involves the elimination of the tunnel, I will tell you right now, there is nothing in the world that is going to get me to vote against that tunnel. That tunnel is a signature piece of Brentwood Bound. It is one of the best things about it. I'm very proud of the work that we have done in that, and I'm not about to vote to undo that. But I am absolutely interested in talking about. I was polite and listened to you talk, and I wish you'd give me the same courtesy. To be honest with you. So we can debate the connection to Dorothy Avenue and whether or not the current plan going up Mary or the more direct plan that Jeff gave us an example of tonight. And I would again reiterate what the mayor had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Lockmiller.
As a representative of the Third Ward, believe me, I've heard you. And we're going to look into alternatives. But this is a small town. We got 2 square miles, 8,000 people live here, and what affects one neighbor affects us all. I got on this board in 2015 because I was tired of looking at the slow deterioration along Manchester Road. If you travel all of Manchester from downtown all the way out to Clarkson, we've got the worst section. We've got deteriorating curbs, sidewalks, you name it, vacant lots. It's an eyesore, and this is what brings down property values in that area. Well, we all know why. It's because of the flooding. So, as a matter of fact, in I guess it was Christmas, day after Christmas, 2015, I stood down there and watched our first responders pull people out of swimming cars down, the Manchester Road. I was in a lady's apartment, knee-deep in floodwaters. 8 months later, it happened again. So as our current mayor said, Mayor Thornton and the board at that time got together and wanted to put an end to this cycle of flooding. We had open workshops to try to tackle this. We knew there'd be no white knight going to come in or any big federal program going to do this. We'd have to do it all on our own. So the other thing was we knew it wasn't going to be a top-down type thing where, we're the city officials, we're going to tell you what to do. We decided that this should be a citizen push-up type project. So many of your neighbors volunteered to be on different committees, everything from the comprehensive plan to rezoning to the parks, even the sales tax campaign. Matter of fact, Brentwood Bound, that was a citizen-driven concept. So, and there were open houses, and there were citizen surveys we had. I mean, look, this is an $80 million project. It's over 30 acres. It encompasses flood control, roadway repair, the connector to Great Rivers Greenway. There's going to be hiccups along the way. We're going to have to tweak things. But we all have to talk with each other and not at each other. Attend the ward meetings. Watch the city website. We need to keep the eye on the prize here. This project, with the development that's going to come behind it, is going to be epic. And it's going to greatly benefit Brentwood, but we all got to work together towards that goal. Thanks.
I agree. Thank you.
I would love to, but I think we're going to have a conversation later under new business. I think that's where some of the comments and some of the historical can come forward.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
My pleasure.
Next on the agenda are the mayor and alderman reports. Under the report of the mayor, we have a few items to take care of. Tom Kramer's resignation from the Board of Aldermen creates a vacancy on the Public Safety Committee, the Police and Firefighters Pension Board, and the Brentwood Redevelopment Corporation. I have visited with the alderpersons listed in your meeting packet, and they all have agreed to serve. As such, I would like to support Alderman Sims to the Brentwood Redevelopment Corporation Board, Alderman Park Tice to the Police and Firefighters Pension Board, and Alderman Ebeling to the Public Safety Committee. Is there a motion and a second to approve the three appointments?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderwoman O'Neill and seconded by Alderman Lockmuller. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Parker Tice is absent. Alderman Plufka.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims absent. Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderwoman Evelyn.
Yes.
And Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everybody. One more item, and that is the election of the acting president of the Board of Aldermen. As you remember, Alderman Kramer held that position, and with his retirement, we have an opening. So the purpose of this role is primarily to fill in the chair, act as the chair for these meetings in the absence of the mayor. And with that, I would entertain any nominations. Alderman Weggie.
I would nominate David Plufka.
Okay. Alderman Leahy.
I will nominate Steve Lockmuller.
Okay. Any other nominations? We will close the nominations. I think you all have sheets of paper. If you would, just go ahead and fill those out. Kevin, do we just need a simple majority on this, or?
Yes. Yes.
Alderman Plufka. Alderman Lockmiller. Alderman Lockmiller. Alderman Plufka. Alderman Lockmiller. And Alderman Lockmiller. I have 2 for Alderman Plufka and 4 for Alderman Lockmiller.
Sure. Okay.
Mayor, may you stay healthy.
Okay, next on the agenda is the city administrator report. We have a report from Craig Schluter on Brentwood Bound updates.
Hi, Craig Schluter with Navigate. I'll be providing the Brentwood Bound update. Starting off
Oh, I'm
with
sorry,
Port of
Craig, I'm
Order.
sorry. You're right. We forgot to do the rest of the alderman reports.
Just stay there. It's all gonna be a minute.
No, that was it. Alderwoman Ebeling.
No report.
Alderman Leahy.
I have 2, Your Honor, if I may. For the residents here, we host, Steve and I, a Ward 3 meeting at the end of every month. We've been doing it for 18 years. Last Tuesday of the month, February 24th, 7 p.m. here at the Rec Center. It's an informal meeting, and we go over whatever concerns you all would like to bring, and we share with you what's going on at City Hall. That's the ward meeting for this month. Your Honor, if I may, I'd like to put a plug in for St. Mary Magdalene, if I may. Later on the agenda, we have a liquor license and stuff for the St. Mary Magdalene Church for their fish fries. Next week starts the Lent season, and the COD squad does the best fish fry in the Archdiocese here at St. Mary Magdalene. They've asked that we authorize them a liquor license starting on Friday, the 28th of February, going to the 10th of April. Please come up. all the money that it raises helps to support the school, and they do have the best food. Starts at 4 p.m. on Friday and goes to 8 p.m. in the gym. And if you can't stay, they also do a drive-through that accommodates those that need to grab dinner to go. Cod and jack salmon are the main menu. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Alderman Lockmuller.
As Andy said, we have a award meeting next Tuesday in here. I'd like to also invite the affected people in Ward 2 to that meeting so we can discuss more, and invite the alderman and alderwoman from Ward 2 to attend also.
Thank you. Alderman O'Neill.
Yes, Ward 4 has a meeting on the same night. Ours is at 5:30 in the Brentwood Forest Clubhouse. It will be downstairs. We've had a problem with access. It will be downstairs, so it's accessible to anybody, and anyone is welcome to come. We'll take whatever questions people have that would affect Ward 4 in the city.
Thank you. Alderman Plufka.
Public Safety will meet February 26th, 5:30 p.m. I think we're still here.
I think we are still here.
Okay.
Yes.
So probably not in this room, but right down the hall.
I'm told that in a few short weeks we will be back at City Hall. Alderman Weggie.
Let's see, so we have received our preliminary plans for the Rosalie STP. That's the new sidewalk and the street lights. We are notionally scheduling an open house and review of that on March 11th, but we still need to confirm the availability of Horner Schriffrin, who's the engineering company who did that, to be there to hear your input. And we're going to follow that up with a Ward 2 meeting. So tentatively scheduled for March 11th at 6 p.m. right now, but we will get confirmation out in all the usual venues for that meeting.
Thank you. Okay. Now, Craig, Brentwood Bound update, please.
Sure. All right, starting off with grants. Is that better? All right, the 319 grant, Jacob submitted this on March 14th. If the city were awarded this grant, the city would net between $250,000 and $300,000. So we're hopeful that we'll get good news there in several months. The National Science Foundation grant, this grant has been submitted and is under review. We should hear back by March 6th if the city is awarded $800,000. The FMA grant is still under review, and we should know by June of 2020 if the city will receive $5.15 million. So we've got a lot of positive things going on with grants. Deer Creek flood mitigation, the demolition package, that's the package where you've been seeing some buildings coming down in the Brentwood bound area. That first package is substantially complete as of February 12th. That's roughly 6 weeks ahead of schedule, so that's all good news. There were no unforeseen hazardous materials found, so the city will receive a $20,000 credit on the allowance that was included in Spirited's contract. So that'll be going back into the Brentwood Bound Contingency Fund. The demolition package 2, that's the next round of buildings that will be demoed. That will go out to bid in middle of April. The flood mitigation phase 1, the draft 95% drawings are to be issued in May. The project is going to go out to bid in late summer of this year. The flood mitigation phase 2 portion of the project, that's the part east of Breckenridge Industrial Bridge. The 60% drawings will be completed in July of this year. Manchester Road improvements, the 100% draft plans will be printed and at City Hall on March 18th for all to review. MoDOT has been actively working on right-of-way and property acquisitions. Their goal is to have all offers to all affected property owners for the Manchester Road Improvement Project by middle of March, and construction is still on track to start in fall of this year. The Deer Creek Greenway Connector, this is the park aspect of Brentwood Bound. Design is underway. 30% plans will be completed in April. There will be the first open house to go through these drawings in May of this year. All are encouraged to attend. Future information is forthcoming. And then the last note is redevelopment. So pending the board's approval of the PGAV agreement tonight, I'll start reporting on next steps with the redevelopment and where we're going from there. In regards to expenditures, since the last meeting, there was $158,190.59 from soft costs, which includes flood mitigation and Deer Creek Greenway Connectors design and engineering, project management fees, and property surveys. And then the other category is property acquisitions. The city is paying approximately $50,000 for West Hills partial property acquisition. And those are the two expenditures today.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Craig? Thanks, Craig. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda, and we have 7 items. The first are standing committee reports, then the warrant list for 2020 expenditures from the 2018 series certificates of participation proceeds, the warrant list for the 2019 and 2020 operating funds, a change order for the proposal for Deer Creek trunk sewer design, request to pay invoice from PGAV, consideration to reject all proposals submitted for the request for qualification for investment advisory services and reissue the request for qualification, and finally, special use permit application for St. Mary Magdalene School. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Plufka, seconded by Alderwoman O'Neill, I believe it was. Any discussion? Alderman Leahy?
Can we look at section F, the consideration of resubmitting of the bids and the proposals that went through the Ways and Means Committee? I understand what we're looking at is the potential that a bidder specifically and possibly a second bidder did not get consideration in the bid release because their bids arrived late, and thus what came through the Ways and Means was the recommendation for the best bid that was presented at the time. If the city does reject to go forward, are we staying copacetic and in the legal bounds of what we're supposed to do, since we've already opened bids and have a recommendation from the committee?
Well, I was going to handle this until you said legal, and I thought we turned it over to the city attorney.
I'm sorry, sir, I was...
But I would just correct you in one thing. They weren't bids.
Okay.
They're not bids, because I think that might be significant, but Mr. City Attorney.
That's correct, Mayor, and yes, the city has the right to reject all proposals it receives and reconsider its course of conduct. I cannot say that the motivation for doing that is out of consideration for any one or more potential interested parties. Rather, it is a consideration of the city's best interest.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else? Okay. Can we get a roll call, please, Shelley?
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman Everly?
Yes.
And Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, new business, item 11A, bill number 6280. Can we get a first reading by title only, please?
Bill number 6280, first reading, an ordinance authorizing engagement of expert resources to assist the city of Brentwood in developing a plan to restore and revitalize the flood-ravaged areas of the Manchester Road corridor.
Okay. We have a presentation on this, or no?
I can give one.
Okay.
Make it short, though.
Yes,
probably, right?
please,
Okay.
please.
So, yeah, the next step in the process for Brentwood Bound, which we had targeted to be the spring of this year, would be to start looking at drafting up a request for qualifications for potential developers for the area. This contract or agreement with PJV would provide that service for staff to be able to work with a consultant that's specialized in economic development services. So the contract includes helping or assisting with drafting the RFQ. Once the RFQ goes out, there'll be probably many questions from potential developers, so helping to answer those questions and solicit proposals would be important, but also just providing some background on what the St. Louis market is really trending right now and what it's doing, so that as we get RFQs, we know we've got good, solid proposals that we want to look at. So this contract in a nutshell is just to have someone that staff can work with an expert in that field to bring this to the table.
Okay, thank you. You have any questions for Lisa on this matter? Can we get a second read of Bill 6280 by title only, please?
I think we might need a motion for
For the second, do we have a motion for a second read of Bill 6280?
For first and second.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yes.
I thought so.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. Bill number 6280, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance authorizing engagement of expert resources to assist the city of Brentwood in developing a plan to restore and revitalize the flood-ravaged areas of the Manchester Road corridor.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to perfect Bill 6280 into ordinance form, please.
Second.
Got a motion by Alderman Leahy, seconded by Alderman Plufka. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman Ebling?
Yes.
And Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes.
Motion passes, becomes ordinance number 4917.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 11B. It's not listed on the agenda, but it's the new item that was added by Alderman Weggie. Alderman Weggie, the floor is yours.
Awesome, great. So, first of all, I appreciate all the input from residents. It is definitely heard, your emails, your speeches, the rocks thrown through Mayor Dimmitt's windows, all of that is taken into consideration. So, instead of focusing on the past, what I'd like to do right now, we heard in the Brentwood Bound update that March 18th is the date when the drawings are done, which means we have about a month. I believe that there is an opportunity to explore the options that are available to us. We had two options, one to go over the Dorothy across the path. That was the original option that was presented in the first open house, and now we're into the second option, which is the extension of Mary. So I would like to make a motion that we direct staff to basically bring those two options to the board at the next meeting with pros and cons or concrete exacting reasons why one of those will not work, and allow this board to hear the feedback and make a decision at that.
Mr. City Attorney, I'm going to rely upon you on that. You understand what the motion is? How do we go about doing that?
It would be your staff report, pros and cons of the options considered in the past and offered for the board's consideration.
Okay.
And I'll ask Craig, is that if we make a decision at the next meeting, will that be incorporated in time that we would hit that March 18th date?
So, Craig, you want to come up here to the microphone and, because the timeline is a bit of a concern. If you could explain to the board the issue of the timeline, please.
Sure. So, yeah, there are a lot of people working to get to that 100% draft set, which is March 8th, which is really March 13th, but it takes a few days to print it, and because this is a big set of drawings, and then for it to show up at City Hall. So the engineers cannot get any changes into that set because they have to get it to MoDOT on that date, because that MoDOT deadline doesn't just affect Brentwood, because this project goes from Hanley to Lindbergh. So, you know, Rock Hill, Kirkwood, there are a lot of municipalities that are all affected. So all of them have to come in, so it's not just a Brentwood component. But I did talk to engineers, and it's not an issue to present options to the board on March 2nd. They will not be revising those drawings, but by the time MoDOT responds to those drawings, which is a month later, if the board directed the consultants to do something different, we could then update the drawings if the option were changed at that point, and so the project could be bid and built to whatever the board desired.
Thank you.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay.
So could I ask a question about that?
Sure, go right ahead.
With regard to the motion itself, is there a way that we could give a deadline to staff so that the public would have an opportunity to come to City Hall, view on the website, pick up an actual copy of whatever the report is with pictures and everything so that they could weigh in by the time we get to the consideration night, which is March 2nd? In other words, could we give them a deadline of, I don't know, the 26th of February, or the 27th of February?
You want to get back up
For
there,
the
Craig?
report to be completed, to give the public an opportunity to see it and weigh in and know what they're weighing in about.
Sure. I don't have the answer for that because it affects a lot of people beyond me. So if you could give me tomorrow, I can see how fast we could put this together. This is obviously an important issue, so we also want to make sure it's thorough and well presented. So if I can get back to you tomorrow, I'm sure the city could do, I don't know where Janet is, but maybe a Facebook post on when it'll be ready to the public. So if everyone can watch Facebook, that'd be a way the city could relay that. And then we could definitely have an answer by the time you guys have your Ward 3 meeting next week.
Thank you.
We may not have an actual deliverable, but at least have some sort of
Something
feedback.
that we could at least start rustling with.
Yes.
That would be
Yes.
marvelous.
Yes. And what was that date again?
The 24th, or no, what are we, the 25th?
25th?
Next Tuesday.
Okay.
Tuesday the
Okay.
25th.
I'll push for that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
That
you.
would be very kind of you.
Thank you, Craig. Do we have any questions? Alderman Lockmuller?
I guess I'll just drop this on Mr. O'Keefe. You know, we have to notify people within a radius, I believe it's 300 feet, if there's anybody wanting to build anything anywhere. If there's anything street-related, do we have a requirement that
No,
we
sir.
should notify the?
No, sir. The reason for notification in certain zoning actions is because there's a state law that allows people who own property within 185 feet of a location which is to be rezoned to file a protest against the rezoning. So in order to effectuate that, we reflect that statutory mandate in notice requirements under the city's ordinances. This does not involve such an action and does not mandate notices.
But we could voluntarily put out a notice if there was going to be a street closure, or a street open, or a street change.
Well, the city can, I mean, obviously you can tell people about anything, and we have sunshine laws requiring notice of agendas and notices of actions, and our website is replete with information on pending matters, so I think there is a concerted effort to make things known.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yes.
Yes.
In listening to comments tonight, I'm picking up a bit of confusion perhaps about the tunnel. This tunnel is not for cars, it's bikers and pedestrians. When we first heard about this, my immediate thought was tunnels are kind of creepy. This will not be. If you use the walking path around Forest Park, either bike or walk it, there's several tunnels that go under streets. They are well lit, they're wide, they're landscaped, they're perfectly safe. It is just not an issue. So that's what we're dealing with here, is something for bikes and people. So those of us who live elsewhere in Brentwood can bike from where we are down through this path and under the tunnel and get into Brentwood bound area ourselves. So please be sure you understand it's pedestrians.
Okay, anything else? Okay, do we need a roll call on this or a voice vote? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So folks, keep your calendar clean for March the 2nd. I would anticipate at the next meeting, you will hear from our consultants as to the different options available for dealing with the ingress and egress to the Brentwood Place apartments, and the pros and cons for both of them, at which time I would anticipate the board would take a vote on which to go with. Yes?
Do we need clarification where the meeting will be, March
Oh.
2nd?
Yeah, and please, and here's the other problem. We're in the process of beginning to transition back to City Hall. For those of you who don't know, there's been a major renovation done of City Hall to increase safety, because we have some locked entrances now, and to make it ADA compliant. Unfortunately, this is right around the same time that we're starting to move back in. So please pay attention to the notices that go out. Check the city's webpage. We will be posting the location of this next meeting as soon as we know, but right now I think we're looking at still keeping it here. Assume that it's going to be here. I'm sorry, what?
School district.
School district, it's for sure at the school district conference?
Yes.
Okay. The next meeting, March 2nd, is for sure going to be at the school district conference center. Okay, so.
Do pay attention to the website and other communication channels from the city just in case.
Right, but still go ahead and continue to look at the webpage just to make sure it hasn't changed, but as of right now, it's going to be at the headquarters for the school district. Okay, that brings us to the last item, that's citizen comments. Anybody who cares to address the board, now is the time to do so. Like before, you'll be given up to 3 minutes. Mike Horton.
I'll start again. This will be a real quick. Alderman Plufka, I think the tunnel, I like the tunnel. I don't think we should get rid of the tunnel if at all possible. When this information is brought to us, I'd really like to, please dumb it down for people like me who aren't an engineer. I don't understand why we are being told that we can't have the tunnel and the entrance for Van Mark Way. I really don't. And I think that's probably something that a lot of people are confused on. So if you could make it, a crayon drawing, stick figures, whatever, But I'd really like to understand what the issue is with having the tunnel and Van Mark Way still going out to Manchester.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
I can show that.
My name is Joyce Langeth. I live on Cecilia Avenue, 2619. I am having issues about the whole idea of connecting with the Greenway. This Van Mark Way closure, the Greenway goes right by that, right? Parallel to it. So if you're putting a path or a drive across that, you're not? You're putting a path across the greenway. Okay. But no, if they go to Mary, they still have the stop sign. So I'm not stupid, but I'm really having issues trying to figure that out.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Brian.
Hi, I just, like what you just brought up, you had a comment on why we couldn't move in to.
That's the tongue was a mess where Van Mark would be right across the top.
So
I need you back at the microphone
I just
so we can
wanted to-
hear.
I just want
Okay.
to see that. So I see that you're drawing there, and, you know, like she was saying, the tunnel's 10 feet wide. So I'm going to work for a large general contractor, $100 million plus a year. There's always drawing modifications and changes. It seems to be something simple at this point, is to shift a 10-foot wide tunnel 10 foot to the left, realign the road, and purchase a little bit of property from the apartment owner and build a retaining wall. So it seems like there's other options available out there besides just the two that were expressed, and with the alignment. So it just seems like there's more than just two options there. We're dealing, like I said, it's just a passenger tunnel. It's not a car tunnel. So it's a pretty small footprint that could be shifted, purchase a little bit of property, keep the current alignment the way it is.
Thank you.
I'm never gonna sell that apartment property. If you want some of that ground, you're gonna pay me like $60,000 for it. I don't want it. So you can just add that to what, if there's any way to keep us on Manchester, I'm not here for a buck. I own this thing forever. I believe in Brentwood, so I'm just throwing that out there. I'll work with you guys any way possible. You can. Thank you. It's a forever decision. I've been doing this a long time. I had 1,400 people in Chesterfield show up. They had to rent the convention center at the Doubletree Hotel when this was a much smaller issue than this one. It's a forever decision. It changes the nature of the character of neighborhoods. And if you go back in your history, Village of Brentwood, well, the same thing. I tried to build that property. I didn't win that thing, but the same thing. It was like they gave that apartment property access to Brentwood Boulevard, so it didn't go into the neighborhoods. And there's a big thing about traffic signals and things like that. So no, keep it out of the neighborhoods. So that's it.
Thank you.
Karen Smith, I'm on Harrison, and I've actually been involved with, I've heard a lot about Brentwood Bound, and I know that you all have tried very hard to communicate. I know about all of the different meetings and the open houses, the surveys, the lot of effort and materials on my door, but clearly to get this many people here at this point in the game, like you insinuated, Mayor, it's just difficult to communicate. And I don't know how you communicate better, but like when you get those little placards, it doesn't have the detail behind it. They're all busy. All of us are busy. We have way too much on our plates, and so you don't necessarily always have the time to go in and look at it. We are a small community, as someone mentioned. It seems like we could figure out a way to get things that are pertinent, especially when we get into the details of trying to map out how it's going to change the characters of our neighborhood, that we could do a better job. And I also, with Brentwood Bound, we've talked about it being for MoDOT, flood mitigation, and green trail. Redevelopment was never part of a lot of the communications that went out. It was always suspect about properties that we were taking and whether it was all for flood mitigation. I am requesting to understand what areas we're actually going to redevelop. And then lastly, we've talked about putting some of these things at the City Hall. Would it be possible to make it available at the library for those of us that work and can't get to City Hall before it closes at 5? Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Anybody else? Oh, got one more.
Thanks. Just wait till you hear what I have to say. No, I just want to make sure, for me, this isn't an issue about the tunnel. I was on board with Brentwood Bound. I went to meetings. I saw the plans, the exit. I knew Van Mark was going away. I believed the path was, the exit was going to come across the path and dump onto Dorothy. Bravo. I voted for it. I was there for you. It's this change to Mary Avenue. That's the problem. So I look forward to seeing what you bring come back, and I'm excited about the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second, Your Honor.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.